What is a urinary system made up of? The urinary system is comprised of the kidneys, ureter, urinary bladder, and urethra. What is the location of the kidneys? The kidneys are retroperitoneal, which means that they are behind the peritoneum and also lie on each side of the vertebral column. As you can see in this picture, the right kidney is slightly lower than the left due to the liver being located right above it. Each kidney is surrounded by a layer of connective tissue called a renal capsule. Outside the capsule is an adipose layer, and outside of that is a thin layer called a renal fascia that helps anchor the kidneys to the abdominal wall. The kidneys are bean-shaped organs and are about the size of a clenched fist. The kidneys have several functions in our body, which include excretion. What that means is that the kidneys filter the blood, take the waste, and convert it into urine. Another function is a regulation of blood and volume and pressure. Depending on the level of hydration of the body, the kidneys will either produce diluted or concentrated urine. Through the volume of the urine production, the blood volume also changes, and so does blood pressure. The kidneys also regulate the blood solute concentration of major ions such as sodium, potassium, and calcium. In addition, the kidneys regulate the pH of extracellular fluid by secreting hydrogen ions. Through the secretion of erythropoietin, the kidneys are also able to regulate the synthesis of red blood cells in the red bone marrow. Lastly, the kidneys take part in the regulation of calcium levels by regulating the synthesis of vitamin D. Now let's take a look at this picture and focus on the structure of the kidneys. First, we must notice that there are two main regions, one being the outer cortex and the other the inner medulla. The cortex is the location of the nephrons, and we will talk about that a little later. The medulla is made up of renal pyramids, which transfer fluid through the kidneys and turn it into urine. There are also renal columns, which are extensions of the cortical tissue. Urine moves through the renal papillae and enters into the minor callus, which later empties into the major callus. From the major calluses, the urine enters the renal pelvis, which is surrounded by the renal sinus. The urine then moves into the ureter and is transported into the urinary bladder. As I mentioned earlier, the nephron is a functional unit of the kidney, and they are distributed mainly through the outer cortex of the kidney. A nephron can be broken down into four regions. The first is the renal corpuscle, which is the filtration area of the nephron. It consists of the glomerulus, which is a network of capillaries. The renal corpuscle also consists of Bowman's capsule, which is a chamber that surrounds the glomerulus. Next, we have the proximal convoluted tubule. The fluid that results from the filtered blood passes through the renal tubule, and the proximal convoluted tubule is the first section. As the tubule descends, it becomes a loop of Henle. Every loop has a descending limb and an ascending limb. Lastly, there is a distal convoluted tubule, which is shorter and connects to a single collecting duct. To very quickly summarize the blood supply circulation of the kidneys, I will name the order in which the blood moves through the kidneys. First, the renal arteries branch off the abdominal aorta and enter the kidneys. From the renal vein, blood travels to the segmented arteries, to the interlobal arteries, to the arcuate arteries, to the interlobal arteries, to the efferent areole, to the glomerulus, to the afferent areole, to the pertubular capillaries, to the vasa recta, to the interlobular veins, to the arcuate veins, to the interlobal veins, and finally to the renal veins. I hope this gave you a foundational understanding of the kidneys and their role in the urinary system. Thanks for watching.